yours has been law, law, law. And all of a sudden this year you decided, you know what, I want to be in politics. Tell us about that transition.
When I was doing law full-time, I was the director at Kituo cha Sheria, where we represented poor people. And before that, I was at the International Commission of Jurists. So in both of those jobs, we had a lot of legal solutions, a lot of things that the law should do that makes the life of Kenyans better. So when the new constitution came and there was a new position for the woman representative, although we've changed our name to county MPs, because down at the counties we were elected by everybody, then I wanted to go in and participate in lawmaking and in changing things, in finding solutions. Yeah, that's why I moved into politics, or rather political leadership.
Would you say so far that was the best decision that you
Yes,
have
to
ever
the extent
made in
that I
terms of
won,
coming
I
into
think so far
politics?
so good, and I won with many votes, I think 216,000 votes. So far I think it's the best decision that I made.
When do you say you have changed from women representative to county MPs? And they are women anyway.
It's because at the county level we were elected by everyone. We were not just elected by women.
Yes.
So when we come to the National Assembly, it's like they are MPs and they are women reps. But all of us are MPs in the National Assembly. So then we need to take a name that assumes the roles of a member of parliament at the National Assembly, and which also speaks to the area from where we were elected, which is the county.
So you're now Priscila
Nyokabi-Nyeri, County MP,
County
Nyeri.
MP Nyeri.
Yes.
County
Yes.
MP Nyeri.
Right. Of course, you were elected under the Jubilee umbrella,
Yes,
TNA. And of course, one question that has always been there is the place of loyalty, whereby you would toe the line if the big people in the party say this is the way we go, that basically becomes the way to go. Are there situations whereby perhaps you think you might just have your personal stand regardless of the party stand? Is that possible?
Yes, that does happen. Not this early on. This early on in a regime, or as the new order is settling, we might have to follow the party line, because then there are party decisions that have to be taken. For example, settling the cabinet, settling the budget, settling the principal secretaries. But along the way, even in party democracy, you can dissent from your party view, where the constituency that you represent has a different view. It's a careful balance, but there are situations where you have to listen more to your constituents, where you have to listen more to your oath of office. But by and large, what will happen, and what we are trying to see into the Jubilee coalition, is that there are many, many discussions before a party position is adopted. And so therefore you can offer your own dissent within the party parameters and within the party discussions.
There was this incident where a committee decided one cabinet secretary is not fit to be a cabinet secretary.
Yes.
And they recommended as such that she should not, because of issues about integrity and the way she conducted herself in the interviews. But Jubilee, using that famous the tyranny of numbers, decided that that's cabinet secretary, because she is a Jubilee nominee, she will be a cabinet secretary. Isn't that a shame?
I don't think it's a shame, because when the list was brought into the House, there were 16 nominees. One nominee did not impress the panel at the interview, but we didn't think that was reason enough to disqualify a nominee. And especially for those of us who are keen on gender matters, when we saw that the person being sacrificed for shyness, we said no.
There was somebody from a home background who said there was an issue of some money which was not accounted, which she handled.
But there was no charge, you know, and so even if there is a letter.
Chapter 6, it does not matter. You shouldn't be charged. You must be you must be as clear and
as Caesar's wife.
Yes.
Yeah, but even if you are as clean as Caesar's wife, there must be a due process, and the due process also involves using the commissions that we have established. So you can't just wake up today and say that I'm a thief or that I'm corrupt. There must be legal processes that determine that condition.
So are you thinking those committees? The whole committee decides that is not proper. And then you members of parliament, because you are many, it doesn't sound good to me. Because it means even if Kamlesh Patni came, like I always say, and you know the history of Kamlesh Patni, and the committee said that he's not fit. Jubilee wants, because of the tyranny of numbers, you pass it.
No, but you know, it's a check and balance. So we are hoping first the president will not appoint Kamlesh Patni. So we don't have a reason to go and vet Kamlesh Patni. But these are people who the president announced.
As we speak now, there are a number of people. They elect the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is saying the potential principal secretaries who are going to be appointed this week. There are a number of them, about 6, I think, including the head of the cabinet secretary, Mr. Kamemia, whose issues are being raised by the ethics, and it's a professional body. Now, because of numbers, Jubilee will say, these are our people.
But it's not just numbers. You know, even with the ethics and anti-corruption, like in the case of cabinet secretary, you know, they did not issue any adverse reports, including on this particular lady. In the case of principal secretaries, it's also going to be a bit questionable why the Anti-Corruption Commission sits on information, doesn't charge you. And then the day you are going to be appointed for a ministerial post, the ethics and anti-corruption comes back, you know, that's looking a bit suspicious. Because ideally they should be doing their work along the way.
We have no respect for that organization.
Well, I sit in the Legal Affairs Committee, and one of the things that we want to look at is actually the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. It's regrettable that first the law is not very strong, but then even what is more regrettable is this conduct, because they can't just do this. I mean, you've been sitting on information. Why didn't you charge me before?
But you know that commission, the Ethics and Corruption Commission, it has been like moribund. Yes. There was an issue of the chairman. There was the issue of even numbers of appointing the commissioner. It looks like the government does not want a strong Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Therefore, Parliament acceds to what the executive wants. And there you are.
But you know, you have to remember this government is new, so you can't say the government doesn't want an active Anti-Corruption Commission. What we need is a chance now to revamp the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Yeah. Now, just talking about, of course, you said you're a member of 3 parliamentary committees. Perhaps you could talk about a bit about that. But before that, perhaps let's focus on the Legal Affairs Committee. There's a bit of a concern, especially when you are looking at the case of Kalpana Rawal. And there was a concern that the MPs, you were actually criticized for poor preparation prior to the vetting. Is that so?
No, I don't think that is true, because we actually had a vetting tool, fairly elaborate. We did have the Kalpana interview for over 3 hours. We did take a lot of time to look at the judgments that she had made earlier. We looked at her questions of competence, at her questions of knowledge areas. We also looked at her leadership, because she's coming to be a big leader in the judicial framework system. We looked at issues of insider, that she'd been in the bench for, you know, the past 10 years. We questioned her on the age question, that you're not going to serve for too long, I think just about 3 years. So we had a long tool. So one of the things we can do, the report is going to be tabled today. So after the report is tabled, then people now can look at the totality of the vetting process, including the questionnaire that we did use for that process.
There was also complaint that you are young lawyers who have appeared before her. And some of you are prone to delaying cases because of corruption, because lawyers are, as we know them. So you delay cases, and she punishes you for delaying cases and being incompetent. Then you go and hammer her now that she's on the other side of the table.
Well, the feeling, or what even came out of the vetting board earlier, remember she's been vetted, was there were questions that she's temperamental, and that sometimes she really does get off as impatient. Even when the reasons for delay are really not based on the lawyer's issues. But in the totality of it, the balance, she was able to explain that she's just a firm judge, that she's really not temperamental, that what she has is firmness, and she doesn't allow people to get off with excuses. But what we want in terms of access to justice is a balance between all the actors of justice, that the bar and the bench are then able to offer justice, and people can see that justice is being offered in the right way.
The reason I raised the concern of poor preparation, it's in fact a report that was published on the Star 27th. Well, it basically said many confused the roles of the Deputy Chief Justice with those of the Chief Registrar of the judiciary. That most of the questions were basically focusing on the roles of the registrar and not the Deputy Chief Justice. And that is why she kept on saying, I simply deputize the Chief Justice. So questions surround the place of your preparation.
No, I think that's not preparation. That's more a question of viewpoint and perspective. At the committee level, we actually feel that the person who becomes Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice must have a wholesome view of the judiciary. You are coming to be the Chief Executive Officer, you are coming to be the accounting officers. So we actually faulted her for being very lean on understanding the entire judicial framework, and especially the role of the judiciary in a country like ours. But there are people who hold the view that judges should not be in administration. But for these 2 positions, the Chief Justice and the Deputy Chief Justice, you really have got to be a manager. You have to worry when we have people in the judiciary serving for 6 years on temporary contracts. There's a problem of law there. So those are the things we questioned her on. But then the other side of it is that she comes to the Supreme Court. So we also really questioned her on jurisprudence. And she was on record admitting that she was wrong on some cases, like where she ordered the exhumation of a body. So we wondered with her, are you not culturally sensitive? We have buried someone. Why would you order that that body, you know, be exhumed just for the purposes of complying with land law? So it wasn't as bad an interview as it was. And when we were questioning her, we also looked at some of the murders or the deaths that are yet to be answered. The Dr. Mbai, she was the judge there. The Saitoti probe, she was the judge. There was Dr. Ouko with the Gor Sungu case, she was involved. So we asked her, what is the pattern here? Do you seem to be very comfortable with the executive and wanted to test the independence of the judiciary between, you know, her role as a judge and also what the judiciary can do? And, you know, now she's coming to the Supreme Court where legal philosophy is also very important. We couldn't also discern, are you, a conservative? Are you a progressive? Do you believe in this new constitution? And I don't think that in all that you can say that we erred anywhere. We actually gave ourselves 70% of the mark, but let's see when the report is tabled. We are worried about the age question, that both her and the Chief Justice seem to be leaving the judiciary at the same time, so the question of succession. So when the report is tabled and she starts to assume her work, then we can come and see whether we really did meet the mark.
All right, let's talk about the two other parliamentary committees that you are in. Tell us more about that.
One of the major committees that I serve in is the Budget and Appropriations. It is now budget process time, so we are looking at the estimates that the government has provided. It's quite heavy because the National Assembly still has got to look at the 100% of the budget, do the sharing between the county governments and the national government, the revenue bill. The Senate would do the allocations of the intra-county. But then when we come to the Budget and Appropriations Committee, we are having our public hearings on Thursday just to sort of get the public perceptions on the estimates. There have been proposals around the balance between recurrent and development expenditure. I think so far now this government is short of development expenditure 30% by I think 1.5, so we might be asking that they push on and get to the development expenditure of 30% and recurrent 70%. We are also looking at the sharing between the lines. There were austerity measures, you know, sort of removing the tea and removing the flowers, and maybe checking these travel budgets so we have a little bit more money for development expenditure. So that's an active committee and a fairly involving one in terms of looking at the national budget process. This year we got late because the election came in March, and then April we settled down, and then the budget has got to be done by June. But I'm hoping that next year we really are in time for budget ceilings. Those of us who believe in gender budgeting, water, you know, higher water allocation, higher health allocations, we hope that we can now have a chance before the ceilings are set in the next budget to do a lot more work than we can this year.